So tonight I want to talk about a jazz big band who deserves so much more credit and recognition for their contribution to Australian music. And not just jazz, Australian music as a whole. G'day, this is Jared's Place for Music, which is slowly becoming the home of very niche music information. The Daly-Wilson Big Band was not some fly-by-the-night big band in Australia. They became incredibly popular. They were selling thousands, probably millions of albums. They were touring the country and they were touring internationally. They had massive influence through the Australian music scene, not just the jazz music scene, but the music scene in general. And they deserve more. They deserve more credit, they deserve more recognition, and they deserve to be talked about today. The Daly-Wilson Big Band wasn't your traditional jazz straight-ahead big band. They evolved over time, fair call. So early on, perhaps a little more jazz-focused. But by the end, they were a rock, jazz, crossover big band that were performing at a level that probably never seen before in Australia or since. And perhaps among the best bands in the world. An extraordinary achievement out of Sydney. So the Daly-Wilson Big Band started off as a rehearsal band, I guess, just to maybe just have some fun. I don't really know, but it was just a rehearsal band, pulling together some players and seeing what they could make of something, turn it into something, and of course they did. The band was started by a drummer called Warren Daly and a trombonist, arranger, composer called Ed Wilson. Now Warren arguably was the fire behind the band, he was the brains behind the band, and he was the musical ideas behind the band, I'm led to believe. Whereas Ed, he had the musical schooling and the ability to turn those ideas into charts, and together they made a formidable team that was somehow managed to make a big band last for more than a decade in Australia, which is just incredible. Like, the costs must have been outrageous to pay all the players and the rehearsals and the touring and stuff. Like, the risk they took on must have been unbelievable, but they made it work. And amazingly, the popularity of the band led to corporate sponsorship, which is again just an amazing outcome for the band to keep it going. I guess the financial pressures became increasingly demanding for them, and then corporate sponsorship, I think, was the only way to keep the band alive. And at some point they were signed with Benson and Hedges, and I think a lot of that might have been the influence of the Philip Morris Super Band, which is a big band out of the States, same sort of concept, where they had sponsorship from Philip Morris, which I believe is a cigarette company as well. It would never fly today, right? You'd never get that happening today with a cigarette sponsor. But they did, and there was that sponsorship that helped them continue on their journey. So what made the Daly-Wilson Big Band different to any other rehearsal band? And I guess this might be the key, because not every other big band had Warren Daly in it. He, by all accounts, I'm actually friends with some of the players that were in that band, so this is coming from a place of knowledge, I guess. He was a hard taskmaster, and I think particularly when the band started to become successful. Apparently, he used to churn through bass players because they just could not keep up. He was really hard on his bass players. But it was his attention to detail and his commitment to excellence that helped the band on its meteoric rise. And I guess it was also a good grounding place for younger players looking to get into the jazz scene, or just working on the beginning of their professional career. They could go into this band, play great, be surrounded by other astounding musicians, and they then had the grounding and the mentality, I guess, inbred into them to continue on that professional journey to play at such a high level. Lots of great musicians went through the band, of course. At one point, the band manager was a trumpet player called Don Ravity, a fantastic trumpet player, and he's on some of the recordings, of course, which we'll go through the recording shortly. an excellent lead trumpet player, and he was the band manager. But of course, being a band manager with a lead trumpet player, he attracted other great trumpet players and brass players into that ensemble, and other players that that you may or may not have heard of through the music scene in that time. Certainly Norm Harris played lead trumpet for a while, a high note specialist, Norm. He was a fantastic musician. I had a few lessons with Norm. Bob Johnson on trombone went through that band as well for a while. There's even videos of James Morrison playing in that band. Now, I don't know if James was a member of that band, but there's a video. It was part of a sports show, I think. I'll see if I can find it and put it up, of James Morrison playing in the Daly-Wilson Big Band. He might have just been depping on third trombone for all I know, but he's there. So, and of course the sax section was amazing, and some great players, Doug Foskett and stuff, went through that saxophone section as well. So the thing with the Daly-Wilson Big Band, I think, is it wasn't trying to cater to the jazz audience. It was trying to cater to everybody. And Warren's ideas that were then penned by Ed Wilson created these charts that if you were a jazz aficionado, you loved it because you could understand and you could dig into those arrangements, and they were really complex and they were harmonically dense and rhythmically challenging. But if you sat on the other side of that fence and you're just a music lover and didn't really understand all of that stuff, you still loved the fire and the passion, and they were songs that you knew. They were popular, or they were versions of popular songs that you could hook. I'll give you an example. You could hook onto. Let me give you an example. So this is their first recording, Daly-Wilson live. This was recorded live at the Cell Block, and this has Don Rafferty on trumpet. I mentioned him before. Trombones, Ed Wilson, George Brodbeck as well, Merv Knott on bass trombone, Doug Foskett, who I mentioned before, on alto, Cole Lachlan, very famous Australian sax player, Tony Buchanan on baritone sax. Like, that's a world-class ensemble with Warren Daly on drums, of course, Ford Ray on electric bass. So I'd nearly bet that every single one of these albums has a different bass player on it. Anyhow, I digress. So, first album from 1960-something, late 60s, I think this was recorded. 1970, that's early 70s, sorry. 23rd of September 1970, this was recorded at the Cell Block Theatre in Sydney. Now the first song is called Kanga, Tie Me Kangaroo Down. But it's not Tie Me Kangaroo Down for the people that sit on this side. It's a really dense and powerful big band arrangement that's very cleverly put together, but not in a ostentatious, self-indulgent way. It's just a really great, charming arrangement. But the people that sit on the I Just Love Music side, well, they got it because it was a popular song, right? So, Tie Me Kangaroo Down sport. The Aussies know it. Maybe some of the viewers of this channel from overseas may not, but the Australian crowd definitely understood that. So that's just an example of, how they were able to cater to both sides of the musical divide. And there's other songs on there, Hip Walk, which is kind of funky. And then there's the last track on on the album on side 2 is called King's Step Out. Now this is more of a rock funk kind of thing, and as kids I was in a big band in Mount Gambier here, and the leader of that big band, or the musical director of that big band, was Bob Johnson, the trombone player who spent some time in this band. He lifted the recording, lifted the arrangement for King's Step Out. God, it was fun to play, because rock funk feel that all the kids loved. So that is a really fantastic album. If you ever see this in a record store, I strongly recommend you pick that up, if you can find one, because I have 4 copies of it. I don't know why I keep buying it. I'm looking for the perfect copy, I guess, the one that's really, really clean. But I've promised one of these to a good mate of mine, Adam Page. That he should definitely have a copy of that in his collection. Another amazing thing that I don't know how they did it really, but with the support of the Whitlam government, the Australian Big Band, the Daly-Wilson Big Band, toured the Soviet Union. It was in the middle of the Cold War in 1975. Somehow they managed to get a whole big band over to the Soviet Union for a tour.
Австралийский оркестр Daly-Wilson Big Band.
I guess that's a real commentary on how important the band was. They played to packed houses, massive audiences, and I believe it was all documented, videoed, probably by the ABC, but I'm not sure where that video lives now. It'd be a pretty remarkable thing to see this 18-19 piece big band with inevitably a road crew of some sort. There could have been 25 people on this tour or more through the Soviet Union in the middle of the Cold War. That's just a remarkable thing. Maybe it was a publicity stunt by the government, I don't know, but I think it's a good thing that it happened, and it's, you know, something that Warren and Ed could be very, very proud of at the time. Well, probably still now. But, so, yeah, a remarkable achievement to be able to tour the Soviet Union in the middle of the Cold War. Must have been scary. The Daly-Wilson Big Band, or the exciting Daly-Wilson Big Band, featuring Kerry Bedell. She's an amazing Australian jazz singer. I guess she crossed over. She did some pop music as well. She's got her own album. I should have got that out. She's got her own album, which is an audiophile recording. It's a 33 record that you play at 45 speed, but that's a story for another day. But she sounds incredible on this as well. And if you want to just get a taste of the Daly-Wilson Big Band, then this is the one that you can stream. This is the only one I've been able to find on Apple Music. But if you want to have a listen to them, see what you think, then that's the one that you can find. Again, a couple of copies of that, because, you know, I see things and I just got to have them. The next album from the Daly-Wilson Big Band is On Tour, and I'll use this copy here because I have two copies of this as well. And this is at the time for the band when they, I guess, were under some financial pressure to do some more work, and they ended up with some sponsorship from Benson and Hedges Company, which are were a cigarette company. I don't know if they still do, I wouldn't have a clue. But it's also where the sound started to change a little bit for the band. Okay, so the earlier couple of things, they did have that strong jazz element in them. And then this album here started to pick up some more commercial type songs. So while the Timey Kangaroo Down Sport themed song was pretty cool, it was still kind of niche. But this album starts, obviously On Tour, this will be a live album as well. This starts with the theme from Shaft, followed up by Fire and Rain, and then Ode to Billy Joe, and then a Superstar medley as well. So you can see, and then on the other side, we've got He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, Space Odyssey 2000, and Hey Jude. So you can see going for a much more commercial sound. I guess they're trying to fill theatres now because they're on tour. They need to sell tickets to the theatres. You're not going to fill those theatres just catering to the jazz aficionados. They're going to go to the clubs and intimate environments, whereas the people on this side of the fence, they're more likely to go to the theatres and see the big band play on a big stage. The band on this, though, just so you know, it just gets better, this band. The saxes are Doug Foskett, Jeff Norton, John Mitchell, Paul Long and Bob Pritchard. The trombones, of course, Ed Wilson, Herbie Cannon, Bob McIver. Bob McIver might be the best trombone player that's ever come through Australia. He is really quite something else. Merv Knott and Steve Powell. And then the trumpets, Don Ravity on lead, and then Norm Harris, who I mentioned earlier, reserving himself for the screech work. In fact, apparently, I'm told, that he would just sit there for the whole song and then just be ready to play the double high C or the double A with a shake on the end of the tune. Larry Elam, who does a fantastic piccolo trumpet solo on Hey Jude. Oh my God, that's just gorgeous. Mick Kenny and Warren Clark, and then the rhythm section, of course, Warren Daly on drums, John Hellman on bass, Hugh Williams on guitar, Dave Donovan on guitar, and Roy Aldridge on keys. Interesting to have a big band with two guitars, obviously leaning into that very commercial sound, but that is a really fun album. If you see that, pick it up. Well, I'm going to say that for all of these albums. If you see any of these, make sure you pick them up. The interesting thing with the Daly-Wilson Big Band records is, particularly if you're in Australia, just check the $5 bin in your record store. They're probably in there, which is a shame because they are much better than the $5 bin records. But now, another amazing singer that made her way through the Australian culture, pop culture, I guess, and she's still relevant now, is Marsha Hines. She's an astounding singer. She was here a couple of years ago, actually, in Mount Gambier, doing a performance in our theatre, and she sounded great. She's getting quite old now, I suppose, and she's on one of those, Australian Idol type shows. It might even be Australian Idol, as one of the judges. But this is the Daly-Wilson Big Band featuring Marsha Hines, and she sounds amazing on this. Yeah, similar sort of lineup in the band. Actually, it hasn't changed much from the previous one, so I won't go through the band. But one of the highlights of this album is a track called El Borro, with, again, piccolo trumpet solo from Larry Elam. It's amazing. I wish I could play these for you. They will probably get... I might try, and if there's a bit of a blank spot, you know that it's been copyrighted, and I'm just, oh, sorry. Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans with Marsha? She sounds so good on that. That's just an iconic song from her on this album. And the other thing that's on this, and this is for big band people, you'll get this, is Chameleon. Now what you'll start to notice as we move through these next few albums is the band starts to take on the sound / theme of another American big band that was very, very popular in this era, and that was Maynard Ferguson's big band, doing the same songs, different arrangements, but if you listen to them back to back, you hear they're different, of course, but you can tell that either these guys have leaned on Maynard's band or Maynard's band has leaned on the Daly-Wilson Big Band for ideas about these songs. So that's another great album. The Benson and Hedges sponsorship, I guess, continues with this album here. Live in Australia in 1977. Remember this, the band started in 1970, so we're 7 years in and it's still going strong. And we've got, again, more commercial, popular music. And if it's in Australia 77, this is a live album as well, with Slaughter on 10th Avenue, $6 Million Man, The Entertainer from the Scott Joplin song. I don't know if I've listened to that one. There's a Beatles medley, which is very cool. MacArthur Park, again, leaning into that Maynard Ferguson type sound, because Maynard does a version of MacArthur Park. Theme from SWAT and A Whiter Shade of Pale. All popular songs at the time that the Daly-Wilson made their own. The next album from the guys, I say guys because I don't know there was ever any female players in the band, so we've got Too Good for a One Night Stand, studio album with, you got to wonder now looking back how it was popular, but obviously it was, with Star Wars, Charlie's Angels theme, Lady Madonna, Gonna Fly Now from Rocky again. If we lean back into Maynard Ferguson, he made that song very famous. Carnival, The Greatest Love of All. So that's, when you look back at it now, I guess it's not that jazz big band at all. It's really catering for that crowd that just love music, and maybe the jazz people probably stopped listening to it at this point. I don't know, because the playing is amazing, right? So if you're a jazz lover, you might not necessarily love the music, but you can appreciate the playing and you can appreciate the albums and, appreciate the arrangements. So I suspect that, the jazz aficionados will still quietly have this in their collection from the late 70s, early 80s. And this one's still under the reign of Benson and Hedges. They're still sponsoring the band. I'm not sure of the year on this one, but I'd say we're beginning into the early 80s now. And then there's the obligatory 10th anniversary. So it's safe to say that this would be 1980, given the first album was 1970. This is featuring Ricky May and Kerry Bedell on this. It's just a best of recording, again under the sponsorship and guidance or the financial support of Benson and Hedges. But you know, there is some songs on this, even though it's a best of. There is songs on this that aren't on the other albums. Misty is on this; it's not on the other albums. You Are the Sunshine of My Life, that would be Ricky May. Ricky May, there's no picture of him here. There's a picture of him there. He's no longer with us, of course. He's a New Zealand celebrity, I guess, and he moved to Australia and became very popular out here. And he has some of his own albums as well, and he's a fabulous singer, and he just brings a certain joy to the music, which you can't explain. You need to hear him sing his songs, and yeah, he's really quite marvellous. So that is the end, though, of the Benson and Hedges support. For maybe they had a contract, I don't know, but that was the end of it, that 10th anniversary album. And then they did one more album after that. Big and Brassy. And I think effectively it was just a way to get another album onto the shelves, because it is just another best of album with more Rocky and Charlie's Angels and everything that we've already heard on this album here. Perhaps it was remastered, because this sounds incredible. It sounds really fresh and modern, the recording, so it may have been remastered for this. I'm not sure. But we've got Warren Daly down here and Ed Wilson up there. So that's their discography. So not a lot of albums, I guess, but it's you know, I guess the band went for, first album was 1970, so let's say they put it together in 1968 maybe, or 69, and this is then early 80s for this one, 1982. So that's a pretty good lifespan for an Australian big band. And there's been nothing like it since, really, in Australia. There's been some good big bands come and go, but nothing that has had the influence on Australian music and Australian musicians that the Daly-Wilson Big Band has. So we get to 1983 and the Big and Brassy album, and that's basically where the band dissolves. Ed and Warren, they go their own way, but they don't go their own way into oblivion. They, of course, are still highly regarded musicians, and Warren goes on to start his own big band, and of course not with the success or the Daly-Wilson Big Band, but I'm sure they worked and they gigged, and Ed kept arranging and writing, and there is a recording out there somewhere. I've got a copy of it. We're so glad that I do. A recording out there that Ed did of some of his big band arrangements with vocals, totally aside from the Daly-Wilson Big Band, nothing to do with that, with a singer called Doug Parkinson. And he pulled a band together, a studio band, went into the studio, recorded these songs, and the arrangements and the playing and Doug's singing are just mind-blowing. It's one of the greatest Australian big band jazz recordings I've ever heard, and I believe it was only ever meant to be a demo tape or a demo disc. I had a friend on that session, and I got a copy of that recording through him, and I treasure it. It's really quite remarkable. So if you ever happen to stumble across that somewhere, I don't know whatever happened to that recording, but there's a good chance if you're a musician in Australia, you've played one of these charts, because I think Ed was using it just as a demo to then sell the charts that he'd written. But there's a chance perhaps you've even played some of those charts from that recording. So the influence of the Daly-Wilson Big Band ran really, really deep. But I fear that they've been forgotten about, and I don't think that's right. They had such an impact on so many musicians and so many people in Australia. I'll nearly bet in the comments there'll be people that say, oh yeah, I saw them live here, I saw them live there. And we should still be talking about them. We should still be listening to them. We should still be joyous that we had that in Australia. So that's a little bit about the Australian big band, the Daly-Wilson Big Band. They're better. They deserve more than being in the dusty $5 crates. They deserve to be part of your conversation, and they deserve to be on your turntable now. So if you've got one hidden away in your record collection, pop it on. And if you happen to be in a record store, keep an eye out for one of those records, because I promise you, you're going to love it. Thanks for sticking around. If you want to, like and subscribe. I'd love to get some more viewers on this platform. But whatever you want to do. But thanks for watching, and happy listening.